Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we've got a new video here for you. The video is going to coincide with a new product. That's the new APG MidRunner Suspension System. For those who've been following along so far, you've seen our big Pro Runner builds. We've now, since then, started selling these individual component pricing to kind of build your own Pro Runner in time. This is another new product offering. This is our MidRunner Suspension System. So today we want to pair this video with going over the individual components that come with the kit and essentially talk about why we designed the parts the way that we did. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the individual components and the sub-assemblies that come with the MidRunner suspension system. And we're going to go through the interchangeable components, service procedures, and alignment procedures, because alignment and geometry is the most essential part of upgrading your Ford Bronco. So now we want to go into and talk about the advantages of our upper control arm versus factory, and also run into some comparisons if you were to source another aftermarket control arm from one of any other vendors out there. So our upper control arm is machined out of 6061 aluminum, just like a lot of the other fancy billet upper control arms you see. This allows us to get really creative with our shape and our design, and they're also beautifully anodized in a series of colors. Now, our upper control arms utilize a 1.5-inch bearing. That 1.5-inch bearing is going to be paired with our associated misalignment spacers. Now, these 1.5-inch bearings are going to allow for a lot of swing angle. Now, swing angle is important because as your suspension system is cycling, what you don't want to do is let the shock throw that further than that swing angle allows. Now you've now got joint bind, brake, whether it's on the trail or even on the street. So swing angle and articulation is super important. That's one huge benefit to our upper control arm. Now, strong bearings and strong joints, hardware, fittings, all that is great. It's all 17.4 material. It's the best of the best. But what really matters about our upper control arm is our critical thinking and forecasting of various aftermarket shocks, meaning if you're going to run a remote reservoir performance shock through King or Icon or Fox or one of the many other shock companies out there, take a look at your upper control arm at full droop. Now check your hose. Is your hose making contact with that upper control arm? We got really creative in our design. We machined out a lot of excess material that was not needed to give you more clearance for those remote reservoir hoses. Just something that we've learned after being in this business for some time. Now, the most important part of our upper control arm is the usability, the nature and the ease of alignment. When you do build your car, you put your shocks on, you got our mid-travel kit, and you are at that final step before taking it and enjoying it. You're going to take it to the alignment shop. Every alignment shop you're going to go to for $125, they're going to put your car in a rack. They're not going to remove your wheels, your tires. They are not going to assess and analyze your suspension system. They are just going to try to get the tires in the wheel to drive straight. Keep the steering wheel straight and drive straight. And if it drives straight, it doesn't pull, they've done their job. The majority of aftermarket upper control arms don't even have adjustability. Some of the great companies out there who use an adjustable upper control arm that have heim joints that will screw in and screw out, great. But in order to make that adjustment, you need to disassemble the suspension, pull the upper control arm off the vehicle, which is very labor intensive, and manually turn in those joints. Rebuild the entire suspension system, put it back on the vehicle, and now take it back to an alignment shop. Do you think your alignment shop is actually going to do that for $125? No, they're not. So what we wanted to accomplish with MidRunner, which we learned from Pro Runner, was having everything double adjuster. Allowing things to have left and right hand threads is permitting us to make changes on the vehicle without removal. No two people run the same ride height. Every spring is technically a little bit different. Some people will be loaded different or want to select interchangeable ride heights. And getting those alignment characteristics dialed in the beginning is going to prevent you from having mechanical issues in the future. It's also going to prevent vibrations, irritating clicks and noises. Let me show you what double adjuster means. Now, once this is installed on the car, all the technician needs to do to add camber, add caster, take camber away, take caster away, get your spindle inclination nice and straight, is grab a wrench and turn this guy. You can watch how that is growing as this rotates. Going out, I'm going in. Moving that upper arm in or out on either side. We always recommend customers start with zeroing their lower cams out, getting toe set, and based on your lift height, you're either going to be positive or negative cambered in or out. Just get in here and make your adjustments. You can even run cam locks and only adjust using the upper control arm. You can rotate in, you can rotate out. Now that is the same on both sides. Now, this is crucial, and we're going to get into show you why it is so important to get your upper control arm dialed for your lifted or, in some situations, lowered ride height. because how important it is for axle integrity. So we've got an axle torn apart. We're gonna show you what happens when we only adjust the lower control arm cam bolts. In front of me right now, we have a long travel prototype axle. Ignore the cutlet in the middle here. This is just, we were doing some cycling testing, but it was an opportune moment because we've got the axle boots removed, the grease taken out, so you guys can really see what's going on inside of the axle. Now this is important because what we're about to show you guys. What we've learned on these axles from Ford is they're already on the red threshold, meaning there's not much buffer on this plunge joint to pull them out any further. Now just watch how much plunge you have. Now, if you're in too deep, you have way less articulation, the bar hits the housing. If you're out too far, the bearings hit the snap ring and you pull. Let us try to articulate what we know is happening with incorrect front suspension geometry. Now, let's say you put a fixed and or adjustable upper control arm and it's not dialed in correctly for your associated ride height. What they're gonna do is the alignment shop is gonna open up the lower cams. When you adjusted those lower cam bolts, you will watch your CV axle pull out. We've noticed 7/8 inches of plunge depth change just using Ford's provided lower control arm cam bolts. Essentially, what does that mean? If you already have a red line level axle and you don't have your suspension aligned correctly because it wasn't aligned correctly or the geometry is incorrect, you're out on the trail, you go full droop, you are essentially pulling out, you go to turn, those bearings hit the snap ring, boom, the whole joint falls out. So this is what we recommend when installing a APG mid-travel suspension system. You're essentially going to take your lower control arms, you're gonna take those cams, you're gonna put them straight down. So that means zeroed out cam. It means it's right in the middle of that slotted hole of your lower pivot brackets. You're going to install our upper control arm, install your tie rods, your shocks, your entire suspension system. Now with those lower cams set at 0, from a side profile, you want your camber zeroed. Essentially 0, as much as you can. Grab a level or eyeball it. Just take a look at the side of your tire. Is it positive, is it negative? You want that nice and 0. Adjusting your upper control arm, not touching your lower control arm cam bolts. Take your tie rods, adjust them so your steering wheel is nice and straight and the tires are pointing straight. Then you take it to alignment. Now you're not gonna get it as close as us. We have some manual measuring tools. We have some lasers and various levels, but even eyeballing it and then going to the alignment shop and telling them that you actually have upper control arm adjuster options without removing from the car, they will spend more time dialing that in for you. So it is essential to have proper axle engagement throughout the entire travel path of your suspension system. And we think this is a step overlooked by a lot of suspension companies selling quick, cheap lift kits. And we know this is overlooked and not an area of focus for almost any alignment shop on the corner you're gonna find out there. So it's up to the consumer to source high quality parts and have them installed by a professional who knows what they're doing. All right, guys, we're not gonna spend a lot of time talking about tie rods, you know, that sensitive subject, but we're gonna quickly go through the standard Ford Bronco tie rods with an M14 bar diameter, and we're gonna talk about the larger bar diameter that comes on the Raptors, the Haas 3.0, and actually an available option to add on to your mid-travel suspension. All right, so guys, overall swing angle, pitch, connecting rods, even outer tie rods are very similar, not enough to matter. Quickly, the failure point is right here on the threaded diameter. This is where the flex point is. What Ford has done and a lot of other companies have done is just simply increasing this diameter. You know, we love a factory tie rod. It's easy to align. It's got no added bump steer. It's got a lot of benefits over high steering if you're not really running hard in the desert or bouncing on boulders. So essentially the only change is right here. We're going from a 14 millimeter bar diameter to a 16 millimeter bar diameter. And we are reducing the chance of failures at this point. You know, if you're running a 37-inch tall tire, you're doing mild to moderate off-roading, you're not gonna break this tie rod. We know some people say that they have broke them before, but they're doing wild stuff. This is really more than what the majority of you guys need. So, and if this is still not enough, we'll get you to some Heim steering. A lot of upgrade options. All right, so you've got your front suspension built, you've got your taller shocks, your lift kit on there, now you got your rear suspension on. Ideally, you're gonna lift the rear as well. Now, getting to the rear suspension, the APG MidRunner kit comes with these double adjuster lower control arms. 2-inch DOM steel tubing, Johnny joints on each side, left and right hand threaded with jam nuts. Why is it left and right hand threaded? We've seen a lot of fixed replacement rear joints out there that are essentially just OEM replacement geometry. You're just taking off this part and just putting a fancy bolt-on bling one. But we're actually not a fan of fixed bearing rear links. The parallel 4-link on the Ford Bronco actually has a momentary bind as it transitions through the center point. So you need flex on those joints. So no better option out there than the Johnny joint. These Johnny joints are amazing. They are bulletproof. They'll last you for 5 years if serviced correctly. Fully serviceable, rebuildable kits with snap rings. You got Zerk fittings to get grease in there every 12 to 16 months. And they're threaded adjustable rods. No two lifts are the same, no two different ride heights are the same. So getting your pinion angle dialed is no easier than how we've done it. This is a strong system. You can bang this thing on a rock. You're not gonna bend it, you're not gonna break it. You simply loosen these jam nuts, you just turn this inner rod, and it's gonna grow or get shorter. So having an adjustable rear control arm is absolutely essential to any lifted vehicle. We've seen torn boots, busted drive shaft, twisted axles. We've seen it all from bad lift kits and fixed rear joints. So we believe this is the second most important part, which is why there's only 2 main components in the MidRunner system. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in on the video demonstration of the APG MidRunner kit. Quick little summary. Geometry is important. Performance is important. Choose right, choose wisely. We hope this video demonstrated that. And if you guys have enjoyed what you guys have seen here, please continue to support along, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.